So I don't have to provide full disclosure and let you know that I am not Gail Brewer. Esther took care of that, so I am not Gail Brewer. But I am a close friend and collaborator and comrade with Olive in her battles both with developers and at times with the city of New York when it colludes excessively with developers. And I want to point out that Olive doesn't just go after developers. If you look at Sophia's beautiful poster and the other beautiful posters for our honorees in the corridor by the youth group that was good enough to provide that visual help, there's Olive's face looking very strong with huge towers behind her. She's turning her back on those huge towers. Very good picture by Sophia. Olive is presenting her back to the towers, but it's not just the developers and the investors that she's turning her back on. She often has to confront as well and turn her back on, as it were, the Department of Buildings, the Bureau of Standards and Appeals, and other city powers that by negligence, oversight, or other mistakes allow those towers to get too big and to destroy much of our living benefits. For 35 years, I've known Olive and worked closely with her. I'm not the chairman of the board. Olive, of course, is the chairman of the board. I call myself the executive director. If they ask me, what do you do? I'm the executive director. I'd like to point out two things that Olive has in common with Clara. There are many others, but there are two that came to mind immediately. As many of you know, Clara spent her last 16 years in a home for the aged in Los Angeles from 81 to 96. Her age, 81 to 96. Did she sit back and let the people run the home and take it easy? No. She got the administration to join in Cesar Chavez's boycott on grapes. More confrontationally, she got the orderlies to unionize in the face of the very people who held her life and death in their hands, the management of the nursing home, of the home for the aged there. She organized the orderlies. That's something that Olive has done in her own way. In what I said about the buildings, she confronts the city itself. She doesn't just confront her fellow citizens. Number two, the Clara Lemlich Award is for social activism, and it's celebrating today, as you have written in the statement, the lives of incredible women whose many decades of brilliant activism have made, what have they made? Real and lasting change in the world. I'd like to point out one lasting change that Olive has made. Besides saving Damraj Park in Lincoln Center, besides adding an exit from Riverside Boulevard onto the West Side Highway to protect West End Avenue from extra traffic, a lasting change that probably none of you know about. She fought that huge building on 69th and Amsterdam Avenue that you may still be offended by. It goes about three times as high as any other building within a mile of it. Much too tall. How did they accomplish that? They went among the neighborhood. Usually you can raise your building somewhat by purchasing air rights from a contiguous property. If you pay for it, you get a few more stories. That's common in New York. What did they do? They had their own little plot of land, and they went all around the area and purchased air rights for about 4 blocks to the south and 1 large block to the west. And these were not contiguous to their property. They were touching like an angle. One corner of this would touch on a property here, and one corner of that. So they were touching, but like hopscotch, all around the area. All of Lincoln Towers had little park-like areas that they, quote, purchased for their air rights, and thereby they went way up. Well, we took them to court. We won at the Supreme Court level, and what happened? A technicality at the appeals level defeated us, but what really happened was the Department of Buildings, as a result of that litigation, changed the wording of their regulations regarding air rights to show that the new, for all 5 boroughs, all new property, it has to be contiguous to the property that the owner has. It cannot be like that building did, as that building did. It has to be contiguous. So from all of us citizens of New York, thank you for that lasting change in the world. Olive Freud.
Tom, you always were a very good speaker. You stole most of what I wanted to say, but there were a few things that he left out and that I'm going to tell you. First of all, I want to thank those of you who administered the Clara Lemlich Award. It is an honor to be in the company of women who have been recognized for their outstanding service to the community in such worthwhile causes as labor movement, health care, abortion rights, and other feminist issues. It is most gratifying that you are acknowledging my lifelong interest and activism in a very different area, in the environmental issues. It is a sign of the time that we are finally focusing on worldwide issues of climate change, pollution, and in fact, the very survival of our species, and indeed our fragile planet. And at a local level, we can do our share by addressing issues such as park, clean air, clean water, and advocate against density that obstructs sunlight and causes unhealthy, overwhelming, and overcrowding. I share this award with the Committee for Environmentally Sound Development and its dedicated volunteers who attend this meeting and prepare a quarterly newsletter, as well as the over 1,000 supporters who continue to try to enhance the quality of life. That's it. Our organization is concerned with the quality of life in this exemplary neighborhood. It is my conviction that global issues are first addressed in our own backyard. The Committee for Environmentally Sound Development has over 1,000 members, and we have been in existence for over 30 years. Our present officers, well, Tom was one of them, and Cleo Dana, I want to mention her, I want to thank her again, and Judy Weinstein. They're in the audience hearing this. Now, Tom did mention that I got the road changed in Riverside Drive and Riverside Boulevard, and that was a lawsuit that has a lot to do with Donald Trump. That was 30 years ago. He took over the buildings on the west side. He really got his way, but the one thing that he didn't get was that the stipulation was that because of the density of his buildings, there had to be a connection with Riverside Drive, which ended at 72nd Street, and Riverside Boulevard, which also ended at 72nd Street, which went through his new projects. There had to be a connection to those two, because if there wasn't a connection, all of the traffic in his project would be going to West End Avenue. So that was a big win. It was a big win, and it was very helpful for those of us on the West Side and using those projects. Yes, Cleo was a great help with Damrosch Park. Lincoln Center wanted to take over the park. It was supposed to be a public park. We went to court on that. We won. And it is a public park. It's returned to its origin. Then the last one, I do want to say this. That was a big fight. The Supreme Court, the first judge who heard our case, agreed with us. We won the fight. You can't do the zoning that was used for 200 Amsterdam. But unfortunately, we lost our battle. The building stands, and we couldn't take it down. I don't know. I have plenty to say about how those things happened, but I really don't want to take up all of that time to explain it to you. But it'll never happen again. And another thing I want to say about that. That building was on the edge of the urban renewal area. In the 1960s, it was a good idea. They said the slums are awful. We'll tear them down, and we're going to put up houses that'll be in a park. They're going to have grass around them and parking space, and they're all over the city. There's a lot on Madison Avenue, there are on Queens, and so forth and so on. Well, this developer had his idea of what zoning was, and he was going to use some of the parks, some of the driveways, to make a bigger zoning area and build bigger buildings. We won the lawsuit in the sense that the Department of Buildings made very clear what the intentions were. We're still in business. I get calls all the time from other groups who want to know what my expertise. I don't know what it was, my expertise. I think it's more that my committee just wouldn't take it and wanted to fight. Right now, someone just called me from 8th Avenue and 46th Street that they're digging a big hole, and they want over 1,000 foot building. That means over 100 stories. And I helped him a little bit. I got him a lawyer and a land use. We'll see where that goes. One of the other things that I want to mention, since we've been in business for a long time, and what's terrible is the density and the tall buildings that are going on. And at one time, there were more artistic people, or there are still artistic people in it. We put together a brochure, and I have a few of them I think you'd like to see. It's called A Case Against Tall Buildings and the Virtue of Recycling Old Ones. We went through the city and found old buildings that had been repurposed and used for something else. You can see the cover. The famous one is the Jefferson Market, but there's a whole lot of stories in there. And we did the research, who the architects were, what the buildings had gone through, and they're over 100 years. And we put this out. People still try to get this brochure. Is my time up?
Your time is
up. All right. If you want to, I have a few, you can take a look at them. But I'm glad that I have an audience to talk to. I know what I'm saying is a little different than what the other people did, but the world goes on, and there are different problems in the world. Thank you.